Now, for those of you that don't know how the commentaries work, I will be watching the movie. You guys will not. I'll be giving a countdown before I play the movie. So that way you guys can grab a copy of the movie yourself and pretty much be able to watch it with me. At the moment I say play, that is when you guys hit play. And we should be synchronized to an extent. Which will work great for YouTube consumption because then you guys could do that on YouTube, time out when I'm hitting play and when we're getting started, and then going from there. But for anyone watching, I want to say welcome. And we are going to be watching Friday the 13th, Part 2. And we will be doing that in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, play. Splashing in the puddles. I always hated my socks getting wet, so there'd be no way I'd do that. Alright. There's the first steps of Jason on film. Aside from the dream sequence from part 1. It always goes back to my theory of how Jason found Alice. I still think, personally, he had to have been working with someone to find Alice, use a telephone, know her phone number, and be able to sneak in and kill her. All without nobody noticing the bag on his head or the deformed look that he had. So if I remember right, they did say that she improv'd all this for this beginning scene. There was no script. It was just telling her to just go. Like, just look at her face. Like, Pamela just radiates, like, being psychotic. I mean, it's a good way to do a recap of the first movie instead of just doing what even Friday the 13th does in the later, just like having a narrator give you a recap and doing a sort of dream sequence, especially with the surviving character, and then you expect her to be the main star of the movie and gets axed off. Oh, here comes the decapitation. Part 2. Oh, we got Jason jumping out. Now, how ironic that that's a dream sequence before Jason ever killed anybody, and then everything that happens with Jason after that. Which will bring up a theory of whether the cops actually really believed in the same thing that they sort of hinted at. Not even hinted at. They did actually say it in the Tommy tapes on the video game. That they believe that the guy that Tommy killed wasn't Jason. They believe it's a bunch of people using the Jason myth. Although that doesn't make sense when you get to part 6 and Jason has his own tombstone. But I'm guessing you kind of have to retcon that in your mind for it. It's still crazy that she improv that whole thing. I mean, granted, I probably think a lot of good actresses could do that. But I wonder how many takes they had to do of that. Hey, Death, you made it to D Live. Is everything working fine? Can you hear everything? Well, at least for me. I know I can hear the movie. I know you can't. But can you hear me? Is everything working fine? It's still buffering. Yeah, it might be an update with your phone. See, now how did he even know her phone number? Assuming that it actually was Jason that called her. Because you're talking about, even if we're going by the theory that Jason was dead up until he was 11 years old. Well, I mean, not dead up until he was 11. He was dead up until the decapitation of Pamela. Means he was 11 years old when he drowned. So he still has the mind of an 11-year-old. So how would he put together the plan to hunt Alice down the way he did? Call her to make sure she was there, be able to sneak in, out, and get back to the campgrounds without ever being seen. Like, keep in mind, it's the mind of an 11-year-old. If we're going by the theory that he was dead up until after the events of part 1. Which goes against, if that is the case, that goes directly against anything everyone has ever said about Jason being mentally handicapped. Because not a bunch of mentally handicapped people can plan things out as thoroughly as that. Oh, thank you, Death. It holds up, especially when you look at it from the perspective that Jason did need a little bit of help. So it makes sense he likely got it from the guy running the nearest camp, which was Pacanat. You figure he snuck in there, put Pamela's head in the refrigerator, knowing that she was going to open it, get scared, and put her in that trap. Which is also still considering the whole mind of an 11-year-old. That's why I believe Jason had to have been living in the woods for over 20 years. Title card. Like, he had to have been living in the woods for over 20 years and had to have some kind of help with someone that had access to a telephone, knew about Alice, where she would be at, in order to help Jason find her. Like, I actually even doubt that that might even have been Jason's feet in the beginning. I know it's meant to be, and that's how the movie portrayed it. But when you go off of how the whole thing comes together and what makes sense and what doesn't, if my theory did hold up and Paul was helping Jason, it makes more sense for those to be Paul's feet. Because you figure how close he was to the little kid. If he was wearing the bag on his head, that would, one, scare the fuck out of the little kid. If he wasn't wearing the bag on his head, that, for one, would scare the fuck out of the little kid. Which, now that I think about it, then you kind of think of it. This takes place 5 years after the first film. Who knows how long Paul has been there for? So you mean to tell me all of a sudden Jason has been around for 5 years, and all of a sudden he just starts killing people out of nowhere? And it just so happens that Paul mysteriously is the one that disappears? That's crazy Ralph. Yeah, it would kind of freak me out too. Just see him like straight face. Dude, I'd be so pissed. Fucking get my truck towed. Had me running all that fucking way. Like, fuck that, man. I'd make him catch a cab or something. It gives a disturbing image of a bear wiping his ass with the rabbit. So, I mean, is that implying that Jason put that in the road? Like, see, that's even more suspicious to me, because why would he be so afraid if in his mind Pamela would be dead? So that goes back to my theory that he was probably in on it with Paul. Like, he had to have known something about Jason being there. Oh, no worries, Death. No worries. Still got a lot more movie to go. Because then you look at Paul's flannels, looks like he might have even been supplying clothes to Jason based on the way Jason's dressed on here. Cut the cheeks. Oh no, man. That distance with the slingshot seems like that would hurt a little bit more than that. Then again, I don't know what exactly he hit her with. I assume it has to have some kind of weight to it to travel like that. Which again, as I said in the last commentary, Gun Media and Ilphonic did a hell of a fucking job recreating the Packanack Lodge for the video game. See, like, right there, Ralph doesn't look anywhere near as crazy as he's supposedly depicted. Oh, thank you for the follow, Alpa Kira. Hope I'm saying that right. Like, give me an actual opportunity to see my little Pennywise alert come in. Yeah, sorry, I had to look close to my my chat laptop because like my eyes are kind of watering and I'm like trying to look and I saw your name come up. Like, wait a minute. Am I seeing that right? And I had to get close up to it. But hopefully I didn't butcher it. But anyhow, welcome, welcome. We are currently, as the title indicates, doing a commentary on Friday the 13th Part 2. Which we are at this moment 23 minutes in. There's my favorite final girl, Jenny. Mm. Like, what the hell would be in your car to spit that kind of shit at you? the campfire scene. It's got to be one of the most iconic scenes in the series. Okay, so if he saw Pamela get beheaded, and that's his when he makes his vow for revenge. I don't know. There's some parts of his story that I doubt because 5 years nobody's been there. So Packanack has stayed updated with everything for 5 years, enough for them to just arrive and not do anything. Like, not have to replace any of the lighting, like wirings, anything. Not to mention, there has to have been someone going in and out. Because there's multiple places throughout that area. The Jarvis residence, which obviously is being used. Higgins Haven, which directly contradicts his story here because Chris Higgins has her encounter with Jason 2 years prior to these events. So there's no way that they are the first to come back to the area. Dog's like, stay the fuck away from me. Dog just looking back like, help. Still looking at the chessboard like, what the hell? So amazing how much they captured everything look wise in the game. Like, I'm still in awe of over that. Even with the game being 2 years old and going through all the shit that it went through. I wish they would have did a follow up with her at some point. Let you know what happened to her after the events of this film. I mean, I know there was a sequel originally planned that had her in a mental institution, but some kind of notice would have been fine on any of the final girls that survived, for that matter. Not just her. Like, what happened to Chris Higgins? Like, we know what happened to Tommy. What happened to Tina Shepard? So I wonder if they put the flannels on Paul originally, before all the sequels took off, like when they were planning this movie. If they put the flannels on Paul and Jason just to try to give you some kind of doubt that, or at least early on, that Paul could have been the killer. He's got Peeping Crazy Ralph. Now, going back to my theory, or a couple of my theories, it could have been that Jason killed Crazy Ralph because of him spying on Paul. Because according to my theories, that Jason is Paul's attack dog all the way up until the end. At some point, Jason does turn on Paul. And Paul does flee in fear and just disappears. That's why his body is never found, and that's why, essentially, he runs off scared, afraid that Jason would come looking for him. Excuse me. It's indicating that Jason was watching them all this time. I mean, of course, killing Crazy Ralph. So he started his killing spree before anybody entered Camp Crystal Lake. Which, yes, I do believe Jason still ate the dog. Oh, bullshit. Any dog owner would get immediately worried that their dog is gone. Especially for the amount of time that they don't see their dog, to the point where she actually gets killed where it's nighttime. Like, if it was a familiar area, maybe. But there's no way you're leaving your small dog that's off of a leash in bear country, as he said, without searching. I mean, you got to be thinking that they would be asking for it. So, like, set up campgrounds that close to a, at this point, famous kind of murder scene and expect none of the kids to want to go there. So you figure, would that be the same trespassing sign from Never Hike Alone? No, because they weren't by the lake. He wasn't by the lake then. I think it's just a similar one that was probably a little bit deeper into the forest. Probably a bear. So you figure, it sounds like Jason has been active, but there's been no murders or anything like that. I mean, maybe with the whole Chris Higgins thing, there might have been something. But like the thing is, things have been quiet for 5 years. That would indicate that they know something that they're not telling. It's like Jason's just like briskly like jogging, and he's like full on trying to sprint for a man of his condition. But it is interesting to see Jason evade authorities. Like no radio to call for backup or anything. There we get the first look at the shack. Kind of would have been interesting to see, like how you see at the end while he's walking through the shack, you could see Jason watching him from outside. But I guess they didn't want to show him with the bag on his face too early on. They wanted to at least build some suspense to actually, is it Jason? Is it not? Is it someone else? If it is someone else, what's their motive? Ugh. Hammer to the back of the head. Mm. Excuse me. It must be cold out there. See, I still think Paul fed them to Jason. Like, he knew that the majority of all the counselors were going to go, and that there was going to be a handful that stayed behind, and those handful would have been the ones that he fed to Jason. Going back to his part of his story, like Jason's out there and he's hungry. Giving away Jenny's trade secrets. Exactly. Now you go out there and start looking for the dog when it's been fucking 8 hours. When you go out looking for your dog that's been missing, and you know what? Fuck it. Why not? Let's get naked and go for a night swim. Even though, again, we are in bear country. But does give us, I believe I may be mistaken, there is a brief nudity scene in the first movie. But this is our first, I would say, gratuitous nude scene of the series. So I believe the brief nude scene that I remember is from Kevin Bacon's sex scene. You might see a little bit of something up top, but I didn't freeze frame it, so don't hold me to that. But that swimming scene is definitely way more than we got in part one. I still think from the documentary, like, you're barking up the wrong tree. Which, if you haven't watched the documentary, it was a running gag, so to speak, that the guy that plays Mark is gay. And she was actually attracted to him on set. But she didn't know that he was gay. Okay, without a doubt, first gratuitous nude scene in Friday the 13th of the entire series. In the words of Axel, look at the beard on that vagina. Yep. Of course, steps into a fucking Bugs Bunny, Looney Tunes, Wile E. Coyote type trap. But I mean, she clearly kind of liked it from what we saw. Even back to the whole thing with the slingshot. It was like a real weird kind of close up, like just popping up into frame. Unless what she was looking for is the machete that Jason has. That's what it seems like. But I mean, I don't know why she would have that. When, okay, she's looking for the pocket knife. But then it's like, why give that look and then show Jason kill him? That would indicate that she was looking for the machete. So that would indicate that the cops do know that Jason is there, but they've never been able to find him. See, that's why Jenny should have been brought back, because she understood Jason in a way that no other character did. Jason was a legend before he put the hockey mask on. But it also shows how odd it is that Paul is so quick to dismiss the Jason stories, shooting down every aspect that Jenny had, that, every thought that she had, I should probably say, of Jason's mentality, like how he would be thinking, why he would be doing what he would be doing. Which I don't think we ever got the answer to what he was in training for. Man, it looks like he's trying to swallow her entire head. Oh, she said the wrong words. It's like taking off underwear, getting naked to put new clothes on so you can go back and retake them off. You gotta love how they broke all of Paul's rules, aside from the whole keep him clean when menstruating because of bears. Like spraying perfume, whatever. I'm about to get some. A bear mauling is totally worth it. It's the two-seater. Get the gas and the battery. Who's got the keys? That's a raging ass storm. Or at least well, shit. Lightning, thunder. Sounds like explosions rather than cracks of thunder. Taking out a guy in a wheelchair. Like Jason can feel it. I can smell sex in the air. But you wonder why Jason never put on that mask. Because you'd have figured that it would have had to have been somewhat more comfortable and easier to see out of than the sack. Mm. See, and that was the thing with the spear. I always assumed it was a toy. Because I didn't think that they would actually have a real spear when they know it was only going to be used for a joke. Like maybe like something that he made. But then again, I guess if he made it, it could have probably been something with a sharp edge. I was like, damn, girl, how long were you going for? You figure Jason had enough time to kill Mark, kill the other two, go find a knife, hide and wait for her to find the bodies, and then proceed. Although I will say we never saw this side of Jason again, really. At least in my mind. Where he's like killing a couple, hiding in the bed, acting like one of them. The way he did. Like that bait and trap. Like you don't see from Jason really again. Which again shows Jason's intelligence. As you figure, Jason had enough time to take all of those bodies and hide them out. Because it seems like they got there as soon as he killed the one girl. See, now that was another thing. How did Jason miss that? He's been a pretty vicious killer from here on out. But all of a sudden, he blatantly misses that. Hmm. So he had a lot. He must have had a lot of time to store all these bodies everywhere. Huh. Fuck that. Until he gives me a reason to get the fuck out, I'm continuing trying to start the car. Come on, run before he gets into rage mode. Oh. Nut shot. That part's not in the game. Figure you'd probably try to run the opposite way. And the longer Jason goes on, the more ineffective he becomes compared to what he was doing as a killer before. Can't remember when they said that in the documentary. Was that supposed to be her being so scared that she pissed herself, essentially? Or was that the rat pee? Like, rat pissing? Because I thought I remembered hearing both versions. Oh, a chainsaw. Jason's like, dude, don't fucking touch me with that thing. Jenny went straight WWE on him. Chair to the back. He's down for the count. Pin him. Like, the only person that ever stepped on the rock to get past that pond was the cop. And seeing how he's the only one that died from going in there, apparently the rock is bad luck. That'd be a new dark theory. Is the rock the source of the death curse? See the shrine with the machete and the sweater, which I didn't realize until the game came out. I guess it must have been from me watching in lower resolution. I never realized he also had her pants, like Pamela Voorhees' pants there too. She's like, what the fuck? Wait, what? Which definitely makes me want a reunion between Jason and Pamela. Outside of what we saw in Freddy vs. Jason. Hello, Amanda. A little bit late to the party, aren't you? It's Ghost Abby. Oh. You figure that gash would have to have really fucked her leg up. Because it's not like the pickaxe was exactly sharp. Could you imagine how bad that sweater probably has to smell? You see his eyes rolling all around like, oh, fuck, this hurts. I imagine that shit's gotta hurt. Ooh. And it got her on the calf, too. I thought at first it might have been on the thigh, which I imagine probably isn't any better, but to get on the calf, the meaty part on top of it, ooh. See, I think at some point, what likely would have happened. Wait. I'll wait for the surprise scene. Especially because we know the dog is dead. Ooh. There we get a look at part two, Jason's face. As you can see, a lot of where the remake got from its design. And of course, Paul's missing. Bye-bye, Ghost Abby. I still love it. I mean, there's things that I obviously criticize about it. But I still love it without a doubt. But after watching the part where Paul's carrying her back to the cabin, I realized that is the likely point of where she slips into the dream state. Like, Paul comes there. Well, wait a minute. No, that can't be. Because we'd have to assume that Jason's injury is, yeah, I mean, let's say for instance, Jason did get injured the way we saw. He got the machete through the shoulder. And then we obviously know going into part 3 that Jason does not attack Jenny through the window. That doesn't happen. The moment they leave the shack, Jason is seen pulling the machete out and leaving. We know that he didn't attack Jenny because there's no way he had the machete in, he attacked Jenny, then went back to the shack, fell down, pulled the machete out, and then left again. That there's no way that happened. So it's pretty much along the lines of she attacked Jason, machete into the shoulder. Paul carried her. As soon as he picked her up and started moving her, at some point she fell asleep. He probably took her to one of the cabins and then took off and ran. Likely calling an ambulance and everything because his body is not... Well, it never says his body specifically, but the body count that we know of from this movie is never indicated in part 3. The count is off by, I think, 1 or 2 bodies. And it's very likely he's one of them. If not, it might be off by more. But I'd have to check all that probably when I watch part 3. I have to keep the body count of this in mind when I do that. But yeah, that kind of answers my question of when she would have slipped into the dream state. It's when Paul carried her to the cabin. She had the dream of Muffin being there and Jason jumping out and attacking her. So yeah, it kind of makes sense in that regard. Now, from her point of view, it could also be that she didn't exactly hurt Jason as bad as she did. It might have thought to have been fatal or even as deep, But from her perspective, she probably thought she got him all the way down here. But in actuality, she might have just called him up here, which is still pretty painful. But judging by what we see from Jason in part 3, he doesn't show any signs of those injuries. But I mean, watching part 2, definitely like watching part 1, gives me a lot to think about, which I will. And I'm sure there's likely some more Dark Theories videos to come from it. But with that being said, that was Friday the 13th part 2, my commentary. Let me know if you guys enjoyed it. Leave comments in the comment section below, and be sure to like, share, and subscribe, as well as hitting the notification bell to be alerted whenever I upload a new video. And as always, I am JG Dark, and I will see you guys for part 3.